So, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Liz Powell, and I'm the founder and head of G2G Consulting, which is a lobbying firm in Washington, and also of Women's Health Advocates, which we launched in February 2025. So, we are a year and a few months in, and we keep growing. And every Wednesday, we come together as a community and we share updates on what's happening in Washington and what we are advocating for these days, what our priority pushes are, and where you can get involved. We really appreciate all of you participating, engaging, using your voice to make a difference. Today, we're going to cover these topics. We've got a special guest speaker, which I'm super excited to introduce you to today. She has been on an amazing advocacy journey and can really show why it is a long haul marathon endeavor. It is not something that you can just get done quickly. And if you stay determined and stay in it for the long haul, you can succeed and make a difference. So, super excited to have Debbie Haine Vijayvergiya. You're good,
BJ,
probably.
Vijayvergiya.
Vijayvergiya. Okay, great. Thanks for the help with that. So, Debbie's amazing. She is the co-founder of Action for Stillbirth Awareness and Prevention Coalition. She's an amazing advocate, a mom, a real community leader in using stories and statistics and facts and data to shape policy, to educate, to advocate, and shape the process. So, would love to have Debbie join me here and we can take down the slides and just have a little bit of a chat. Would love to start off if you could just tell us about your background and how you became the co-founder of Action for Stillbirth Awareness and Prevention Coalition.
Absolutely. And thanks again, Liz, for having me here today. I really do appreciate it. So, how did I become one of the co-founders of ASAP? Well, my
Mhm.
story begins back in 2011. I was pregnant, went to my OB for a routine second trimester checkup, and my doctor could not detect my daughter Autumn's heartbeat. I had already had a daughter who was 3.5 years old. I had suffered two previous miscarriages. I had never known that something like this was possible. I had never heard of stillbirth before. And so I, I mean, it's safe to say that, my world came crashing down around me. I had no idea what this was. I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea if it could happen again, could it happen to my daughter. And I'd always kind of considered myself a relatively educated and worldly person, but how in the world did I not know that this was something that could happen? I knew what SIDS was before I had a baby, but stillbirth, no. And stillbirth is 15 times more common than SIDS.
Mm.
And so I, what can I say? It was like an itch I could not scratch. I needed to understand what stillbirth was. I needed to understand why my daughter died. My doctors did me a huge disservice. They told me that losing her was as rare as being struck by lightning,
Oh,
which really, made me feel like I was to blame in some way. And I soon learned that Autumn was one of 25,000 babies that had died in that year in 2011. And
mm.
it didn't really feel so rare to me. And so I decided to close the doors at a very successful legal recruiting business, and I focused on, I've spent the past, it'll be 15 years next week, uh, she's passed, that I've dedicated my life to stillbirth advocacy. Um, and so fast forward to ASAP, I lost Autumn in 2011. Right out of the gates, I was, talking to anyone that would speak with me about why stillbirths were happening, why no one was talking about it. And I was invited to present in 2012 at First Candle's International Conference on Stillbirth, SIDS, and Infant Survival. I presented on, taking the taboo, the importance of taking the taboo out of stillbirth in our society. It was there that I met a number of people that have played a very pivotal role in my advocacy journey. Specifically, six women who were aligned with my my take on things. And together we decided to form the Action for Stillbirth Awareness and Prevention Coalition. Uh, you know, what can I say? It was a very exciting time. We were able to build a membership of over 1,000 members, and we did some really good work. We really we had a shared goal of unifying our, one voice, everyone having the same, mission, because it really simplifies things, I feel like you're way more effective.
Yeah.
And so we spent a few years working together on that. And, I think like with everything in life, between there was COVID and then there were just competing priorities with everyone's different organizations, things kind of petered out. But I mean, it was because of ASAP that, I was able to have some really, I was able to sit at some really important tables. And I
Yeah.
think that finding people that are aligned in your thinking and shared goals is really a big part in advocacy. And so ASAP was part of the beginning of my journey into this world, which I have had zero previous experience.
But now you're the expert.
I don't know about that. I feel like I'm
Yes.
building it as I fly it, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I am so moved by it and really moved that you turned such tragedy into change making. Like you're helping millions of others with that, and I just want to thank you for that. I know you've been super active on the federal and the state level, but let's start with New Jersey. Can you share what you did in New Jersey?
Absolutely. So New Jersey is a tiny state, and when I learned about New Jersey's stillbirth stats many years ago, I thought, well, we are a small but mighty state. We need to be doing more.
Yeah.
And the first thing someone ever said to me, well, I guess it landed, actually, let me rewind. It actually was because I was inspired from the conference, the first Candles conference. I came home inspired and I wrote an article. First article I've ever written in my life, wrote an article and was fortunate enough to get it published on the front page of the Sunday op-ed section of New Jersey's largest news organization. And for me, I mean, what was I, a year or so into advocacy? I was like, I felt like it's all about throwing as much spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. I felt like the more people I could reach, the better my chances were of finding someone that could help.
Mhm.
And so I wrote an article, I shared my story, and it actually did catch the eye of someone very important at the time, former Senate Majority Leader Loretta Weinberg from New Jersey, state senator. She was a mother, she was a grandmother, and she was totally moved by my story and reached out. We met and asked if I would be interested in working on legislation. Um,
Wow, that's really
yes,
cool. She reached out to you.
very cool. And like, mind you, and I know I didn't go jump into this, and I'm sure there's many people here today that don't know about stillbirth, but the reason that if what drove me to be so determined is that, every year in the United States, like over 20,000 babies are stillborn. Many of these deaths are occurring in like healthy, low risk pregnancies. And no one is it can happen to anyone. And the fact of the matter is that once you suffer stillbirth, you're at greater risk for, maternal mortality rates have gone up and, morbidity complications as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that many of these deaths are preventable, at least 25%, they're saying, but we still don't know why, and we're not able to do more. I I was like, what's happening in this world today? Like, how is it that like
Yeah.
every day over 60 babies are dying and no one is doing anything about it? And so that's what really drove me. I mean, it was if Autumn died and someone could explain to me why and the numbers were not as the stats weren't as shocking as they were, I would accept it. But the mere fact that, every day, almost three kindergarten classes worth of babies or children are dying and no one's doing anything, I was like, something has to happen. So
Yeah.
fast forward, so here I am. I was at the conference. I wrote an article. I was approached about legislation, which I had never, ever imagined would be a path that I would take. But I also had spent a year plus talking to people, and all I kept hearing is, sorry, it's not a low enough hanging fruit. We don't really understand enough, so there's really nothing that we can do. So we decided to sit down and discuss legislation. The first thing was that, stillbirth data in this country, and especially in New Jersey, it was not good. And without good data, we're really limited in our ability to understand why babies are dying and how to drive, prevention strategies. And um, so we decided that the first part of the bill would be about trying to improve the data collection and reporting piece of things.
Yep.
Um, and then the second was, the hospital that I delivered Autumn at, the care that I received it was really appalling. And I do see where best practices come into play. And I think that if the care that I received was different, maybe my trajectory would have been different. But I was just so hurt, and it just made things so much worse for me. And I was just wanted to help other people so that they didn't have to experience um, the same, care that after losing their baby, the way in which they did. And I just, so the bill was really, the focus was to improve policies and procedures in a hospital for when a stillbirth occurs, to
Yep.
ensure that families receive, compassionate and dignified care. So it was twofold. And what can I say? It was really exciting. You sit down and someone says, well, what is it that you want to fix here?
Yeah.
And then you give them a whole laundry list, and then you sit and you talk through it some more and you flush out your ideas, and you're like, okay, well, this is already kind of happening here. Maybe we just focus on this separately, don't have to include it in legislation, have a few meetings. And, net, a year later, I watched the whole political process unfold. And in 2013, the Autumn Joyce Stillbirth Research and Dignity Act was introduced, which was so exciting. And the bill passed the Senate and Assembly unanimously. And in 2014, the bill was passed and signed into law, which was
Amazing.
very exciting.
Yes.
Um, but I did learn it was my first experience ever with policy, and it was where I learned how important it was to have funding attached to a bill
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
support the work, but still
Right.
nonetheless very exciting.
Right.
And it's been a big part of my work here in New Jersey. I work with many different stakeholders and have pursued other policy, and um, it's been exciting. It's been a
Yeah.
journey.
That's awesome. All right. And then just tell us real quick about federal level, because I know you've got the Shine for Autumn Act on the federal level. What's happening with that one?
Yes, and so fast forward, the Lancet Medical Journal had published an entire series on preventing stillbirths, any preventable stillbirths. And what that series did was it highlighted what all these other high-income countries were doing to address stillbirth rates and how horribly the US was lagging behind. And over the course of the years, I had heard a lot about how what the gaps were, to the barriers to addressing this issue, right? It's like we need better data collection, we need more research, need more awareness and education. Um, and that's what all these other countries were doing. And so I was, few of the steering committee members from ASAP and I were invited to sit down and talk with different heads of federal agencies about the Lancet series and about what it talked about in the state, and really discuss like the state of stillbirth in the United States and what is it that we need to be doing. And it was on that call that everyone really agreed that we had a legitimate problem, and what these other high-income countries were doing was working. And but it was there that I learned that the US is not able to use any sort of data collected outside of this country to drive any sort of recommendations or guidelines, right? And then we also didn't have the money to do the work ourselves. So
Yep.
this was like 2016. It'd been a few years I've been doing this. And, you know, what can I say? It felt like an easy enough lift. I was like, oh, is money all you need? I can get you money and then you can fix it.
Yeah.
And so, silly me. So that, no, but I mean, it really, I didn't know what it would entail. but it felt easy enough. And here we are. The Stillbirth Health Improvement and Education for Autumn Act. We spent 7 years working on it. It
Yeah.
was introduced and in 2021 and on October 5th, and almost 2 months to the day, the bill passed almost unanimously through the House of Representatives. And what this bill would do is take critical steps to invest in improving data collection and reporting and enhancing education and awareness and increasing research. Um, and it's been a wild ride. I mean, really, basically, it would provide states funding to support grants to different uh, well, actually would provide grants to states to be able to improve their data collection and raise more and increasing the education and awareness piece. Um, and the bill passed in 2 months. It was introduced into
Which is unheard of, by the way. That's crazy fast. So,
someone had told me it was like 1 in 100,000. Like,
exactly.
and but listen, you have to, and then look at it from my perspective. So I had a bill in New Jersey passed unanimously in a year.
Yeah.
Then I get federal legislation, though it did take many years to work on it. It passed in 2 months' time,
Months. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
2022 hits, and we introduce it into the Senate, and then things start to get interesting.
Yeah.
And there are just many competing priorities, and we were just unable to move the bill. So, but I mean, listen, I knew it was a rare thing that happened. I was okay with it not passing the Senate that year. What did I know? And then it was reintroduced. It was introduced into the 118th Congress, and we made some serious progress. We were able to, move the bill out of the Energy and Commerce Committee unanimously, which is a huge deal. And we just couldn't move it through the Senate. We couldn't get it back to the House floor. And despite best efforts, I mean, I was on the phone with staffers at midnight on December 22nd, 21st, whatever that was, being
Yeah.
like, we're going to try to do this, we're going to try to do that. But we couldn't. But listen, we ended the 118th Congress with 100 and I'm drawing a blank, 140, 114 bipartisan co-sponsors in the House and 43 bipartisan
That's
co-sponsors in the Senate,
amazing.
which is huge,
That is huge.
huge.
Yep.
And so the support was there.
Yeah.
I mean, when it passed the House in 21, I mean, it was 408 to 18.
Yeah.
That in itself also rarely ever happens.
Yep.
But things just changed when it became a Republican-led House and rules happened and we just couldn't move it. And I'll be honest, it was definitely a moment where I had to sit back and reflect. I mean, it's been a lot of work. I've made a lot of sacrifices to get the bill into to where it is
Sure.
and the support that it has. And so I wasn't so sure about coming back in the 119th. And then I went to DC for the swearing in ceremonies on January 3rd
Yep.
of 25 and ran into all these different members who basically cornered me and told me like, no, no, you have to
Yes.
come back. You have to come back.
Yes.
You've done good work. So what can I say? I'm a sucker.
Yes.
I've been, I, all I've ever wanted since Autumn died was for someone to sit up and take notice and want and care and want to do
Yes.
something. I mean, for a country as wealthy as ours, like be, over 20,000 babies dying every year should not be something that's acceptable or considered the norm. And that's what it is today.
Yes.
And
Yep.
it's been a beautiful thing seeing maternal health receive the kind of attention that it has. I first went to DC in 2014 and no one was talking about maternal health. I
Mm.
sat with, my original bill sponsors were the co-chairs of the Maternity Care Caucus. Like, it's amazing how far we've come. And so I came back with the bill um, in 20 for the 119th, and we've made some changes to it. But at the end of the day, it's the same bill, and it's really something that it's needed. It's not
Yep.
complicated. It's non-controversial. It's just funding that would go to we need the research and we need better
Yep.
data collection. And once we have that, then we can create more awareness and more complete education. But until then, we're really limited in our ability to understand why babies are dying at this rate and what it is that we can be doing to prevent these unnecessary deaths. And
Yeah.
so, um, I'm here and I'm still doing my thing. And
Yes,
it's been really amazing to see how an issue can get the kind of support that it does. And it's just needing to have that persistency and patience. As you know, someone told me it's not a marathon or it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And
yeah, it's
I'm like,
definitely marathon.
right. And I remember being like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah,
I got a bill passed in a year and it did this, in the
yeah,
117th, but it is. It's a slow burn. But when you start to see the progress and the change, it's exhilarating. You kind of feel like it drives you to push harder. And it's been so I'm still here. The 119th is not
absolutely.
over, and we
Yeah,
are pushing to try to get this bill across the finish line. And I just want to say that also, as far as at the federal level, the bill's original co-sponsors were sat on the Appropriations Committee, and as kind of like an insurance policy, we decided to appropriate funding to a Stillbirth working group, the NICHD Stillbirth working group,
yep,
and which has been great. I mean, they convened a multidisciplinary team of researchers, clinicians, people with lived experience, stakeholders, and really to kind of investigate and examine what it is that's happening in the U.S. What are the barriers? What is it that we need to do to break them down? And in 2021, there was, uh, you know, small amount of funding attached to it. And I've been working on appropriations ever since
get that
2022
right.
when the
Yeah,
members retired. Again, no idea what I'm doing, but I really am proud to say
yeah.
that we received an increase of 250,000 for FY26.
That's
And
great.
the House report has an increase of 1.1 million. So we still
Wow.
have to get it through the Senate and then they need to confer. But I mean, for me, the proof is in the pudding. Clearly, this is a bipartisan, non-controversial issue.
Yeah.
All we want to do is protect families from suffering this
What an
devastating.
amazing, amazing journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love the nuances of how you've navigated government. And it does take determination and it takes a long time. And while, getting this bill passed and signed into law definitely is first and foremost, you are educating so many people. You are enabling this sort of ripple effect of education and awareness because there's other women out there are other moms out there who you've helped through this work, and you've definitely gotten members of Congress who never even thought about this before to now understand this. So all those are significant metrics of success. Plus you just shared the very crafty way of working through appropriations and getting some increases there. Like, you are amazing,
Thank
super
you.
successful, super effective, and I thank you so much.
Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And thanks again for having me. It
yeah.
means a great deal. And yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, folks, stay with us. We're going to put up some slides and go over what's going on in government right now, what we've been working on. So let's go to that next slide on legislative successes. Okay, so you heard Debbie talk about appropriations. So as you know, we put a big focus on that and we try to shape funding lines and language. So real quick on this one, we worked with a team of folks. Society for Women's Health Research is an amazing leader in this effort in getting a 5 million increase for the Office of Research on Women's Health. There's other language around that we push to get around integrating across the institutes. So we would have not just sectioned off, but in all 27 centers and institutes, this focus on sex differences and the need to study and get sex aggregated data. Next slide goes over the menopause language that we put in. We did try to make it a mandate, but it's not quite a mandate, but it is still pushing the schools to include menopause education in their medical schools. Okay, and then more research for menopause. Next slide, please. Sex differences. There's great language around sex differences in here, and finally calling this out. It's actually taken a while to get this. So, the definition of women's health, that's that holistic definition, head to toe over the lifespan. We got that in last year. This year, they've continued to use a lot of the language references, and now they're focusing on sex differences in aging, which is super important. And then also talking about expanding sex as a biological variable and the role of hormonal factors in health and disease. So we thought this was really good to point out to you all. Next slide, please. Just want to move quickly. The defense bill. First time seeing a language like this, a real focus on maternal health within the military. So I think that's exciting. They want to make sure that they're addressing the care needs, but they're also looking at the maternal health professionals that are available and what they need to do to address any gaps in availability. The next slide goes over what we got in the FDA bill, which I talked about last time, which is this new Women's Health Innovation Pilot Program. Okay, next slide. And then just to be clear, all the successes I just referenced, that's all from the House. The Senate has not acted yet. So we still have a few more hurdles to get through, but great progress on the House side. Also, I didn't mention ARPA-H got 1.5 million in the House. I'm sorry, which is a big deal because last year it was less than that. It was less than a million. I'm sorry, less than a billion. And so for them to get up to that level is exciting at this stage. Of course, coughing. We've had some active committees. I'm just going to highlight a couple. Endo and Adeno, we did this letter to Department of Labor. We did a congressional letter on CMS coverage. And then we're doing a letter to CMS for reimbursement of excision surgery. I'm so sorry.
Liz, do you want me to jump in while you get a glass of water?
Thanks.
Yes. No worries. So hey everybody, this is Katie. As Liz noted, we have some wonderful progress in those appropriate bills because of our policy committees highlighting here what Endo and Adeno have been up to, as well as the sexual health committee, working both with Department of Labor with big success on FMLA, and then on work with CMS regarding coverage for both of these areas, which we're really excited about.
Thank you so much. And then this slide shows just highlights of the letter that we drafted and worked with some members of Congress, in particular Congresswoman Williams, who has endometriosis and co-chairs the endometriosis caucus. She took the lead and she got over a dozen members to co-sign a letter that we sent to Department of Labor. Next slide, please. This just gives updates. We keep growing. I'm most excited about the letters, upper left corner, to have almost 4,000 letters at this point. That's huge. Below that, I wrote 6+ because we've had so many briefings at this point. It's pretty amazing. The in-person ones were 6, but we've actually done so many online. We might be approaching 10. So I will get the correct number next time, but it's amazing. It keeps growing. LinkedIn keeps growing. Instagram keeps growing. And we get more signups. So all of that's great. Sorry, next slide, please. Yeah. Political update. So these are the races that we're tracking. And there's been some shifts in columns. So usually there's a toss-up column, there's a lean Democrat, lean Republican, and then likely Democrat, likely Republican, and then just solid, not even a competition. So what we've seen, and we will continue to see, is a shift. I think in some of these races moving between, they might lean R, lean D, and then get shifted into a toss-up or other way around. So a lot of things can happen between now and Election Day. But these are the races that we are really honing in on. And what we will be doing is studying the candidates. We're still finishing up primaries in some states, but we will be providing information on the 2 candidates when the primaries are done. So we want to be helpful in informing people on where these folks stand on women's health, what they've done, if it's a priority for them, because with that information, then you can decide what you do with that. You can go volunteer in the campaign, you can write checks, you can send letters, you can go do town hall participation, like whatever way you want to engage. We, of course, will help with giving you a toolkit on that. But we just think, number one, we've got to have that information. We're also going to be looking at studying the women members And because a lot of people express interest in what the women members are doing. And there's a couple physicians in there. So we are working to gather that information. And we have this new candidates endorsement request form that the Women's Health Advocates Political Committee created. That's the link to go fill it out. And this is what it looks like when you go to the website or the form. And we ask some basic questions. So we're asking folks to do their homework before they make the submission of the candidate they think that we should endorse. And when we say endorse, we'll come out with a list of the candidates that are really strong on women's health. That's our goal with that. So that's exciting. I want to thank the political committee who worked really hard on that. Appreciate that help. Next slide. I think we just close out with ways to get involved. So we have a new letter in our Right to Congress on our website for the OMB rule, which is really really damaging to research because it eliminates peer-reviewed research as the final decision maker and allows at any point in the process for the grant to be terminated or rejected by a political appointee. There's also concern around language around sex and gender that could eliminate research that's happening that's really important to women's health. Sorry, there's some other challenges in there. The letter should be a good guide for you. So please go in and send a letter. We want to send these letters to members of Congress and to get members of Congress to push back. Congress can write into law. They can write legislation that pushes back on these changes that OMB is proposing. So, or they can have private conversations to maybe alter it. So it is important to engage our members. I want to give a special thanks to Katie Schubert because she and I were talking about the OMB rule and the letter. There's official letters that you can submit through the comment process. It's due July 13th. And she was the one that was like, why don't we do letters to Congress? And so I really wanted to thank Katie for that. Great idea. So we also have these other letters in there that we always have in there. Those are always good to send as well, but really pushing for that OMB rule right now. And then Women's Health Advocates, I will share with the steering committee our letter that we've crafted on our call right now. But we are going to send in a letter under Women's Health Advocates letterhead to OMB on that. Okay, the next slide, just some upcoming events on the 20th, the 23rd, and August 18th. Some great speakers, really excited. Information on the next slide, please, with all the links, etc., is going to be in the chat box. Next slide is the My Vote Our Health. Thank you all for dialing in. We keep getting more people, which is great. The next one is August 27th. And then finally, we'll close out with ways to get involved. There's committees you can join. Next slide is the regional committees. And the next slide shows upcoming calls. And then the next slide is a steering committee. We also then have on July 8th, our Breast Cancer Early Detection Coalition monthly call. Special thank you to our sponsors. As usual, you make all this possible. And then finally, our voices are power. Let's make it count. So thank you all for dialing in. Sorry, I went over a little bit today. Really appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing the steering folks on our steering call. Thank you so much. Bye.